Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Miranda and today we are doing my June wrap up. I know this video is coming out in like the second week of July, but it is what it is. We are doing a June wrap up now. I'm very excited to go over this month. I had a very successful month, my most successful by far. And that's, really exciting for me. So, obviously, we're going to start with what I'm drinking today. I'm actually just drinking sweet tea today. It's really hot. I don't know if you can tell, but it's, got condensation on it. And it's only been out for, a couple minutes. It's really hot in my apartment. I do anything. And I start sweating. So, I didn't want coffee. Again, I'm trying to save coffee creamer. But I wanted caffeine. So, sweet tea it is. Ayo. And I gotta get all my sweet tea in before I go to England. Because, they don't really have sweet tea over there. And of course, we have Marvin here with us today. So Marvin, what is your favorite part of England? It's a pretty cool part, if you ask me. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and start off with some stats. I know I just talked a little bit about stats in my last video, but these stats are going to be specific to June. I also just want to say I am currently reading my last book. It is only June 29th, but I wanted to get this video out before I went to England. So this is as of right now, so the stats will be slightly different. And I got all of these stats from Storygraph. If you want to see my Storygraph, the link is down below in the description. So as of right now, I've read 13 books in June, 5,608 pages. All 13 of them were fiction, no surprise. My highest genre was fantasy, which 9 of them, first genres were fantasy. I had 1 physical book. My average star rating was a 3.62, and my star range went from a 2.5 to a 4.5. Those are some quick stats about my month of June. Best month by far, book count wise. Yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. The first book that I read this month was Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. This book was about a young woman named Kier and the destruction of Earth, and now all humans live, not all humans, her group of humans live on a spaceship, and they are the last fighting humans, and their goal is to kind of finish this war between humans and the aliens. And her life kind of gets thrown upside down when her brother gets assigned the strike force, which essentially means that he's been assigned to suicide. He's going on a suicide mission. So she leaves base to go follow her brother and make sure that he doesn't do that. And things go crazy from there. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, which I was surprised about because it's sci-fi. I'm not usually a huge sci-fi reader, but I did really enjoy this book. I really liked that Kier was so strict. She was a no-nonsense kind of gal. You followed the rules or you got in trouble. She has only ever gotten in trouble once in her life. She was that kind of person, and she made sure, it's called her Sparrow, her little group that she ordered around, her sparrows of ladies. She made sure that they were also on top of their shit. And my paper just fell. Sorry about that. I got my notes. And it's nice to see kind of how her journey goes from her being so difficult to her realizing maybe being difficult's not the way to be. And maybe that her loyalty made her blind to some pretty obvious things. So I really kind of liked reading about her journey. I loved the relationships between Kier, Avi, Mags, and Yiso, and Cleo. it was just interesting to see how they all grew together and how they all changed together, even though they were really only, like, together for, I want to say, like, a couple months, if that. It might have been more than that. I think there's, like, a time skip at some point. Because between all of these characters, there's love, there's hate, there's respect, there's just pure agony, and every emotion in between. Watching them interact with each other was my favorite parts of the entire book, was them communicating to each other, and I really, really enjoyed it. The middle of the book, you gotta read it to know, but oh my god, I don't see a lot of signs. Like, I'm always surprised by plot twists. I say always, I'm usually surprised by plot twists. I was not surprised that the Darkling ended up being a bad guy, because he's called the Darkling. But, for the most part, so, like, plot twists really kind of come up on me, and this one, oh man, bang, bang, shebang, came out of nowhere. I was shocked, and I was just broken. Great book. 4 to 5. Absolutely recommend it. My mom's reading it, or she's going to read it soon. So I hope she enjoys that. So shout out to you, Mom. The next book that I read was Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This book follows a girl named Dora and how she gets half of her soul ripped out, and she feels less emotions than what is considered normal. And she goes, it's a Regency era romance with some fantasy elements in it. And so she goes to, I think, like, London. I don't actually remember where she goes. I don't think where she goes is really important. But she goes to, like a high society, the Ton, if you will. She goes to the Ton. And she meets Elias. And, you know, they have a good time. I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5. I was so close to giving it 5 stars. So close. It was just right on the brink of 5 stars. I just didn't. I wish there was just slightly more angst in there. Just a little bit more. I thought Elias fell slightly too quickly for Dora, but Dora's great, so, like, I get it. Like, Elias, I get it. But I just wish there was slightly more angst. I think that would have given it a 5 if it was slightly longer, with a little more yearning for each other. That would have been great. But it was just a happy, feel-good romance, which I really liked. I did the whole, like, you know, when you lay on your stomach on the bed and you have your hands up and you're kicking your legs. It was kind of one of those kind of feelings. It was awesome. I haven't felt that kind of giddy about a romance in a really long time, and I really enjoyed it. I love that it was Elias just bigging up Dora every chance he got. He knew what she was about the whole time. Maybe not the whole time, but he, like, fell for her the second he tried to, like, scare her off, and she was just kind of like, okay. And he was all like, ugh, a woman who can handle me. That's exactly what he was like. And it was just, everyone just was so, like, mean to Dora. Everyone except for, like, Elias and his group, and then her cousin. I think it was her cousin. Everyone else, like, the moms, oh, horrible. The moms are terrible. And they're just so mean to Dora because she's different. But Dora was easily the most compassionate person out of every single person there. Like, by far. So pick up Dora, pick up Elias, loved them. Just happy little giddy romance. The next book that I read was Guild by Raven Kennedy, and this book is a King Midas retelling. It follows a lady named Oren, I called her Oren the whole time. And she has been gold touched. by Midas. She's the only one who's been gold touched by Midas. And it follows her and King Midas's relationship. She is trapped in an actual cage. It's huge. Like, I think, like, it spans, like, a floor and then some. But she is literally kept in a cage by King Midas. Which, she put herself there, actually, and I know some people might be like, well, you don't victim shame, whatever. No, she, like, literally told Midas to put her in a cage. So. The first book I gave a 3.5 out of 5. It was really short and really quick. I read it in about, like, I want to say maybe, like, 5 hours. It didn't take a whole lot of time. It starts off it starts off and you go, oh, it's one of these kinds of books. It starts off with an orgy that Aaron? I don't know. Aaron has to watch. King Midas is a part of. And no one's allowed to touch her but him. And it's one of those books. The orgy was just crazy. I was so surprised. It literally just starts off with, like, orgy. It's like, oh, cool. It's a King Midas retelling. I don't want to get, like, too many spoilers, which kind of is hard to do because I'm about to talk about the next 3 books. Oh, also, so the King Midas, he's having an orgy, right, with his group of whores. Sorry for using that word. But they're called saddles because they get ridden. Yeah, so he has his royal saddles, and Aaron is considered the golden saddle. This book had colorful language. If you do not like words like whore and a bunch of other words kind of similar in that area, then maybe give this book a skip. The next book that I read was Glint, also from Raven Kennedy, the second book in the Plated Prisoner series. This just continues her crazy adventures. She is traveling, I think, 2 weeks after King Midas has left his kingdom to go to a different kingdom. So she's now traveling behind him because they didn't want to travel together because that was the security risk. And she gets kidnapped. Uh-oh. Crazy stuff happens. And then she meets the commander of, I want to say it's like the third kingdom. The numbers at this point don't really matter. But one of the kingdoms where the king, like that kingdom's king is called King Rot because he destroys land. And so the commander of this kingdom finds her, and his name, Rip. Ooh, Commander Rip. Then why do they call him Rip? Because he rips people's heads off. Oh, whoa, Rip, really? Crazy. Crazy. Sorry, I think she actually gets kidnapped in Guild. And then Glint is about her experience being kidnapped. It doesn't really matter. They all kind of blend together after a while. So yeah, I gave that one a 4 out of 5. I thought it was really good. It had the romance, the angsty romance starting, and I really liked that. So the next book that I read was Gleam, which is the third book in the series by Raven Kennedy. I gave that one a 4.5 out of 5. At this point in the series, I was getting a little worried on how it was going to be 5 books long. Because things kind of started, like, going in the direction that you think, like, oh, this is how the series ends. And I was getting a little worried that there was somehow going to be 2 more books after this. And I was a little like, ugh. But this is my favorite book of the entire series. It has Erin's kind of like acceptance of herself that I always appreciate. Her relationships with the people around her are starting to change. Most of them are starting to change. Some of them don't change at all. And you kind of start to see what being a golden saddle, that title alone, how that affects how people view her regardless of who she actually is. And the fact that everyone knows her as Midas's golden saddle, and how that eliminates so many choices for her because everyone knows who she is. Literally everybody. So, it's a good book. Best book of the series so far. Next book I read was Glow, also by Raven Kennedy. I give this one a 3.5 out of 5. I understand now how it's going to be 5 series with the way this book ended. I get it. Okay, yeah. I think I found this book a little slow. I want to say it was like 700 pages long, and it probably didn't need to be that long. The biggest issue I had with this book was just that Erin just wasn't talking to anybody about anything. She was having all these thoughts in her head, and she just wasn't talking about it. And I get it for a little bit. I get it. Sometimes you just don't want to talk about it. But, like, this book could have been, like, 300 pages shorter if she just talked to somebody. But she needed to do her trauma. So she needed to deal with it how she needed to deal with it. So, fine. Go, Erin. Do what you need to do. I'm looking forward to the 5th book. And I just hope everybody gets a happy ending. The next book that I read was Blooming in Graves by Matt Desmond. This was a poetry book about the loss of love. And so I gave this a 3 out of 5, mostly just because when I read poetry, I just kind of, like, flatline almost. I was just a bit shocked. There were, like, 2 poems in this book that just, to me, just came out of nowhere. I was just shocked. If you want to know which one I was most shocked at, look at the kiss kiss portion of this poem. That one just blew my mind. Ooh. But some of the poems I thought were actually quite thought-evoking, and I kind of sat there and did think about what he said and what maybe he was trying to mean, or what he said would affect my life if I thought that way. Kind of, can I almost connect to what he was saying? But not all of it. Some of it I just... Kiss, kiss. Why? Why did you need to add that one? And I'm just shocked by Kiss, kiss. So I gave it 3 out of 5, mostly just because I was confused. And I mean, I liked it. It was really short. It took me like 10 minutes. Super short. But yeah, it was just like, oh. Okay. The next book that I read was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. McQuiston. Whatever. This book follows the son, Alex, of the president. So his mom becomes president of the United States. So it follows Alex, and then also Prince Henry, who is the prince over in England. And it starts off as enemies to lovers. It's more like competitors to lovers, not really enemies. It's more like Alex is like, he's the person everyone, what's the word? Compares me to. That means we're rivals. But Henry's over there just kind of like, Are we rivals, dude? Are we? It is a romance book. I read this book mostly because Aurelium Gurley Winter wanted me to read it, and it fit the prompt I was reading, which was good. But it was just... the middle of it was kind of boring. I'm so sorry, Winter, to say that. It's just... there was a certain part in the middle where every single action that was taken was the exact same. Alex and Henry would go do something, then they'd do something, and then they'd have a conversation about, like, oh, life sucks because we can't do all this with everyone knowing, and then they'd go, okay, see you later, and then they'd, like, text and email each other, and then 2 pages later they go do something, and then they go do something, and then they have that conversation again, and then they text and email each other. And it's just, there was too many pages of that, of them just being like, I wish, wouldn't it be nice? And I'm like, I get you're probably trying to establish, like, a timeline. You're probably trying to be like, oh, okay, they've been together for this long. But you could just, I don't know. Some of it I was just kind of like, okay, again, we're doing this again. I think it's a good book if you're maybe, like, questioning yourself about your sexuality and you are confused, because Alex goes through this, maybe not wonderful and maybe not difficult, but he goes through his own discovery of what his sexuality means to him, and if things that he thought were normal are, like, actually wasn't normal. It was very interesting to see, was how Alex starts to view his own sexuality. But overall, the middle part, I just thought the middle part was boring. Towards the end, it got really good. I liked it. Would I read it again? Maybe. I don't know. Alright, the next book that I read was King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This book follows Nikolai after the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and Zoya and Nina after the Six of Crows duology. I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5. I'm going to say something kind of controversial. Most people who read this book don't enjoy Nina's parts. They think Nina's parts are the worst, and they just prefer reading about Zoya and Nikolai. I was on the opposite end of the spectrum. I really enjoyed reading Nina's parts, and I liked Zoya and Nikolai's parts, but not as much as I liked Nina's parts. But I think the people who read King of Scars are the people who read Shadow and Bone. And I think Six of Crows is its own, like, entity, almost. And this definitely kind of ties it together, especially with Crooked Kingdom. And this book, it starts to weave Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows together. But if you're a Six of Crows fan and you read King of Scars, I don't think it's the same impact as if you were a Shadow and Bone fan and you read King of Scars. Because you see characters from Shadow and Bone here, obviously. There's Nikolai and Zoya. And the only character you see here from Six of Crows is Nina. And Nina's not really Nina anymore. Like, she's going through it. And she doesn't even get called Nina. She's called Mila. And she doesn't look like Nina. She doesn't act like Nina. She, in all intents and purposes, not Nina. This book made me really sad when I got to one part in one of Nina's chapters. I think that's all I need to say. I think it's obvious if you've read the book what part I mean. I'm glad that I finally read it, because now I can read Rule of Wolves, which I know the Six of Crows boys show up, even just for a little bit. And I hope to see all of them again. But yeah, I thought Zoya and Nikolai's chapters were the most boring. I thought it was really slow in the middle. So I liked it, but, like, not that much. But I liked Nina a whole lot. So big up Nina. Everyone else is like, okay. Alright, the next book that I read was A Forest of Stars by Lindsay Hall. This book followed a girl named Sia, and she gets kidnapped by this super attractive Fae King to compete in a competition to become his queen, but she doesn't want to do it at all. So she spends the whole time trying to help her friend. She just met this girl, but the friendliest person here, who they do consider themselves to be friends, so I guess friends is right. But she spends the whole competition trying to make sure her friend wins. All the while, she's like, oh, the king is super hot. And then the king's, like, best friend, also super hot. I gave this book a 2.5 out of 5. This book was not great writing-wise. I thought this book was really funny. I thought Sia was just kind of stupid. And they just said things that, like, people just don't say. And I enjoyed reading this book immensely. That's the only reason it got as high as it did, was because I enjoyed myself reading this book. But it was not a good book. If you're looking for, like, a literary masterpiece, do not read this book. But if you're looking for a book that you can kind of laugh at and maybe see yourself in Sia a little bit, give it a go. But it's just, this book, it was mostly just, people just said things that you just don't say. Like, no one would say that, ever. Or if you did say that, people would laugh at you. No one would just take it and be like, yeah, okay. Supposedly, this book is, like, this series is supposed to be really spicy. Nothing really happened in the first book. So maybe the next books in the series will be spicy. Will I read the next books in the series? I don't know, probably. I gotta know what else Sia has to say. Alright, the next book that I read was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This book follows Nesta after all of the events of the original ACOTAR trilogy. I say it follows Nesta and Cassian. It's in third person, which is different from the other ACOTAR books. And is a big boy. He's a big boy. I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5. I just don't like Nesta all that much. Sorry to say. She's kind of annoying. I think her attitude problem in the beginning is just too much to overlook and too much to, like, I get it, okay? She's got trauma. Look, she's got to do what she's got to do. Fine. But she's being horrible just to be horrible. And you could argue that she's being horrible because she doesn't think she deserves anyone to like her, so she's just pushing everybody away before they can push her away and before they realize that she's terrible and blah, 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 blah. She's still horrible. And sometimes I couldn't take it. Cassian in this book is okay. I don't know. I think it's interesting to see him, like, a more serious side of him, like, actually caring about things. But I kind of miss the ha-ha-ha Cassian, the one who just jokes about everything. He's very serious in the book. One thing I liked about this book was Rhys. And people are going to be like, you liked Rhys in this book? No, I liked seeing a side of Rhys that we didn't get to see in the ACOTAR trilogy, because we get a different perspective. So we get to see kind of his more, like, bad traits. Feyre, I feel like, overlooks a lot of bad traits. So she takes the bad traits and, like, turns them into good traits. Or she just ignores them. But Nesta does not. Nesta sees them and she talks about them. She goes, I hate Rhys. And I go, okay. Sometimes I can see why. Don't you worry, it's fine. The end of this book was really good, though. I liked the way the character development finally ended with Nesta. And I can't wait for the next book. And I hope Nesta remains happy forever. I think she does deserve that. I really struggled with the middle of this book also. I think her relationship between her and Cassian, the very physical relationship between her and Cassian, wasn't doing either of them any favors. But they couldn't stop because they're mates. And they just had to keep going. I think it just was a lot, though. A lot of physical before emotional. And I don't think either of them needed that. But it is what it is. 3.5 out of 5. It's a big boy. Probably could have been less big. The next book that I read was This Is How You Lose a Time War by Max Gladstone and Amal El-Mohtar. Yes, I will say I hopped on that train from, what was it, Biggest Dickus or something? That one Twitter account who talked about this book. And then I realized that Really Girly Winter read it like 2 years ago. Or 3 years ago. In 2020. So, heyo. What's up, Winter? I read this book. This book is it's a sapphic romance between two time travelers. One of them is like a robot, and the other one is like fae. I think anyways. I know one of them's like got like the cyberpunk vibe. I think the other one is actually fae though. She can turn into tigers. And she comes from a tree. That's pretty fae to me, if you ask me. I don't know if her ears were pointed, though. I gave this book a 3 out of 5. I am stupid. And because I am stupid, this book probably didn't have the same impact on me as it would have if a smart person read it. I couldn't really follow what was really going on in the war part of it. Like, I could follow the letters. It was very poetic, which again, it was kind of a problem because I'm not very good at poems. And so I just felt kind of dumb reading this book, and I wish I was smarter so I could like this book more. It was still good though. I did enjoy it. I listened to the audiobook version of this book, and the person who reads Blue's side is Emily Wu Zeller. And I don't know how many of you guys also play video games who watch my channels, but Emily Wu Zeller voice acts a woman called Panem in Cyberpunk, and I just thought that was really interesting. And so in my mind, Agent Red was female V if she worked for, oh my gosh, I can't remember, Arasaka. And then Panem was blue if she could turn into animals. So that's how I pictured it the whole time. I thought it was good. I liked it. I thought the ending was interesting. I caught on to what was going on right when I think I was supposed to. So I think that's good. I'm not that dumb. The last book that I've read so far in full is The Wicked King by Holly Black. This is the second book in the Cruel Prince trilogy, or the Heir of the Folk trilogy. This one follows Jude and Cardan again, but obviously in the events after the Cruel Prince. I really enjoyed rereading this. I was going to read this in July, so if you're watching this and you go, hey, didn't you say you were going to read this in July? Yes, I was supposed to read this in July, but a really girly Brittany decided she wanted to read it now, so I had to read it now. And I read it in 2 days. I think she's like a third of the way through. But I had to finish it before she did. Because it's a competition. She doesn't know that, but I do. It's a competition. Yeah, I really like this book. A whole lot. It is definitely better, in my opinion, than The Cruel Prince. It's still got that court intrigue, but it has a slightly, more yearning of the romance. Jude is sitting there a lot of time going, like, I want him, I don't. I want him, I don't. I want him, I don't. And I think that's kind of fun. And I'm excited to read How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories at some point. I'm going to try and read that before I read the next book, but we'll see if that happens. I don't know when I'll be able to read it, but we'll see. Big Up Jordan. Good book. Oh, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I didn't say that. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I like this series a lot, so I'm not surprised. And the last book that I have not finished yet is Naked in Death. I just haven't finished it yet. I've maybe read like 8 pages, so I can't really say much on it, but I'm working on it. That book is in progress, and hopefully I will have it done tomorrow. I plan on reading it on the plane if I don't get it done before then. So that is everything. Do you have any last minute words, Marvin? Alright, very cool. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a wonderful morning, evening, noon, night, whatever it is, wherever you are. And I hope you guys had a good 4th of July last week. Forgot that's happening. And I love you so much. And have a wonderful day. Okay, bye.